Hello, and welcome back to more RWBY fanfiction reading. This time it's the same as last time. Part 3 of White Rose Tea, as in Chapter 3. Or, well, actually, it does say Part 3. Anyways, I believe this might be the end, because I did look at this, and, it says continuing the story, which I think talks about the next one, and another thing, which, doesn't really matter. So I believe this is the last chapter before the next story begins, which, hopefully we can get through. Monday afternoon. Weiss cycled as quickly as possible to the White Stag on the off chance that RWBY would drop in today. She normally didn't go this fast, but she had to admit she loved the feeling of wind in her hair, which she had to tie lower to compensate for her helmet, and the ground blurring beneath her. Whatever. It's adding too much onto that sentence. Gotta get there early, gotta see RWBY. Gotta get there early, gotta see RWBY. Gotta get, what the? Weiss broke off as she rounded a blind corner, crashed into another cyclist, and fell to the ground. Both bikes toppled over with a harsh scraping sound of metal on concrete. Weiss shakily got to her feet. She'd grazed her leg and maybe her cheek, but other than that, she was okay. She brushed the dust off of her work clothes and glared at the other cyclist, a tall blonde teenager, male. Abs. You dunce, watch where you're going, she snapped, cursing silently as she noticed the chain on her bike was broken. I'll have to walk now. Hey, I'm not to blame. You sped around that corner like really, really fast. His hands were raised, his voice indignant. Weiss narrowed her eyes. Look, I have somewhere to be, and I don't want to waste any more time on you degenerate. It's Sun, actually, he said mildly. I don't care. As she walked away, pulling the bicycle alongside her, she realized she hadn't snapped at someone like that since RWBY turned up. Usually it was a pretty regular thing. Huh, Blake had a point. Maybe. Only maybe. Ah! Don't be doing this. This was a mistake. And then it started to rain. Weiss sighed, wishing she had a hood or to draw over her head, or an umbrella, but preferably a bright red hood. She sighed and held one arm up in front of her face. There was no point rushing now. She wouldn't be late, but she certainly wouldn't be early either. Coco and Fox would get there before her. She looked down at her white shirt and saw a little bit of red on it. She frowned. Blood? She raised one hand and pulled it across her cheek. When she looked at it again, it had blood on it too. She must look like an absolute mess. Hopefully she'd be able to get cleaned up before RWBY got there. Her cheek stung, but it was nothing. Still, there was certainly no way she could work while she looked like she just dropped in from the zombie apocalypse. She leant her bike against the side of the building and went through the back. Coco and Fox were already getting ready to take over from whoever worked during the day. She explained to the pair that it was just a fall and went to the bathroom to clean up her face. As she's guessed, it wasn't that bad, just a little red mark on her cheekbone. Once she washed it, she grabbed a couple of paper towels and pressed them on to stop the small amount of bleeding that was going on. She put a Band-Aid on or something like that, but decided against it. It would probably look worse than it was if there was padding all over it. Hey, Weiss. Weiss looked up as Coco poked her head around the door. Yeah? You sure you're good? I'm fine, just going to wait until it stops bleeding. Sure, well, we're taking over for our shift in 15 minutes, but Fox and I have it covered. Thanks. No problem. Just try to be out there soon. Sure. As Coco left, she took away the paper towel, folded it over, pressed it on the graze again, and then checked for any more blood. There wasn't much. I'll give it another 5 minutes. Eventually, the bleeding stopped, and she came out. She checked her watch, and it was just past 4 o'clock. She wouldn't have missed RWBY, assuming she was coming. If she had to get here from Signal Academy, the White Stag was a good half-hour drive away. The earlier part of the afternoon passed pretty uneventfully. She had to use her slightly broken German to try and get someone called Ludwig's order, but other than that, came in. She was soaking wet, her hood pulled over her head. Her eyes immediately brightened when she saw Weiss. Hi! Fox was already at the counter, so Weiss let him take her order. Rose tea with milk, he said, frowning. Weiss quickly explained she knew what Ruby meant, so he let her do it. Take away or eat in? I'll have it here. Weiss nodded, then went to the box of tea. She frowned as she saw a slip of paper in it. Go get her. I believe in you, etc., etc., etc. Blake. Weiss grinned. Ruby took her usual place by the window. Weiss lingered around the counter for a while while the rose tea brewed, blushing madly. She clenched one hand into a fist. That's it. I have to tell her. She bit her lip, trying to stop her hands from shaking relatively unsuccessfully, then poured the milk and put the teacup carefully on the tray. Ruby was looking hopefully over her. Weiss nodded and strode towards her, praying she wouldn't drop the cup. There you go. Thanks. Neck burning. How exactly was she meant to do this? Did she just say it, or would she... No, she wasn't going to leave it now. She... Okay. She but her tongue, her mind racing. Ruby? Hmm? She took a deep breath. I like you a lot. More than I should. More than society thinks I should. More than you probably think I should. Ruby's eyes lit up. You mean? Yeah, like that. I just thought you should know. Ruby trailed off, lost for words. You don't have to come back here if it makes you uncomfortable, Weiss said flatly, preparing for a rejection, turning away. I just thought you should know. Not come back? Weiss, I could kiss you. Ruby was beaming now. She leapt out of her chair and wrapped her arms around Weiss, burying her face in her shoulder. Weiss turned bright red. You could? Oh, thank God, I thought I would have to say it. Wait, you didn't know? I thought it was obvious. You were obvious. Weiss stiffened. What? You know all this time? Well, what tipped you off? You only charged me $3.50. You blushed like all. Okay, I get it. That's why I kept coming back, she added quietly, but I wasn't sure. I was scared that you'd think I was weird. No. After all, Weiss suddenly became aware that people were staring at them. Coco and Fox looked faintly amused. Fox even handed over a small wad of notes to Coco, looking considerably ticked off. Weiss frowned. Have they been betting about us? What has Blake said? Ruby seemed to notice too, so she took Weiss's hand and murmured, I'll come back on Saturday. Weiss felt tears prick in her eyes. This was real. This was actually real. I'd like that. And that is the end of White Rose Tea. And of course it continues with the second one. Or it continues with the sequel. Raindrops on Roses and Whiskers on Kittens, or RWBY. So yeah, that's essentially it. That's it for this. Shorter than the other two. But yeah, so next time will be RWBY, which is by the same author and continues both of the stories that we've read recently. So,